Hey everybody, Josh Sigurdson, World Alternative Media here, and of course we're joined by author and economic analyst here, I'm John Sneisen, and the breach of privacy in India continues to get further and further and further into the abyss as we got an article sent to us recently by We Are Change, Luke Rudowski, and I'm happy that he sent us this because this is a really major news story. We kind of miss things from time to time because you can't see all the news, and this one kind of goes in tune with everything we've been warning about for a while with the centrally planned cashless society, especially in India with the Aadhar system, which has like retina scans, all sorts of stuff. Of course, in 2014, about 100 days after Modi took over, the prime minister, India launched a massive program offering bank accounts to the poor, which in reality just kind of put them back onto that system, stopped cash outflow and inflow, etc., and put a monitor on them. And this report is all about Big Brother, folks. And going into this new article here, India's national ID database is reportedly accessible for less than $10. And of course, it's turned into a crazy scenario where these people in the shadows are offering like the entire national ID system to people for about $10. We didn't do that. I don't feel like having some international criminal incident happening with me. But the point is, as the article goes into, the nightmare is a reality in India. Reports from the country suggest that the government's national ID system, Aadhar, which holds personal data belonging to more than 1 billion people, was compromised. On the slight positive side, the breach wasn't down to hackers, at least on this occasion. The access hole was publicized after Indian newspaper The Tribune paid a man less than $10 in exchange for administration access to the database. Reporters from the paper were then given a username and password that allowed them to access information on any citizen by entering their 12-digit number. And it gets worse. Buzzfeed tracked down the seller, a man going by the pseudonym Anil Kumar, and he told the publication that the Tribune deal was just one of 8 transactions that he made that week. Now, first of all, I want to quickly mention, if you have that access, why are you only selling it for $10? Really? People will pay much more than that. You should get a mind for the market, man. But, I mean, here's where it kind of goes into what we've been talking about for so long is that first, if your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's the bank's. And if your money's always going through the banks via digital transactions, legal tender laws, etc., which the cashless system in India has pushed forward, your money is never in your hands. It's never your money. It's always the bank's, and you're essentially enslaved to the government and banking system through legal tender laws. And centrally planning a cashless system also leads to the bail-in regimes that they are pushing forward in India at a really fast rate, because you can't do a run on the bank if they steal all your money and your money doesn't exist. It's a centrally planned cashless system. Very different from Bitcoin, etc. We'll get into that shortly. But John, what do you think about this compromise and how it kind of relates to this lack of privacy that's being pushed forward, this Big Brother is watching you kind of mentality of people just bowing down to the state and banking system with a cashless system?
Well, privacy doesn't exist, first of all, Josh. With recent Equifax, where every all these credit cards and information was stolen.
Yeah.
And it happens all over the world. This information is available on some kind of server, and if it's connected to the internet, somebody can get access to it if they know how to hack a little bit. So it's very dangerous. This whole privacy thing is totally eviscerated anything that any person like us have any freedom anymore. Puts you out there, out into the open, and everything is available. Now, of course, with the cashless system, it's all about taxation. That's all that it is about, getting more money for the government.
Yeah, how dare you, pay something in cash. That's why India demonetized and pushed into the system, because they want a tab on every person in the second most populated country in the world.
Yeah, of course. Now, of course, with taxation, in Norway and other countries, all the high tax countries is the ones that have the biggest black markets because people are trying to avoid getting stolen from, and they have no money left after their paycheck. So this whole system with Aadhar, which is terrible. Like, they take your retina scan and your biometrics, your fingerprint, and then they have all that, and they make you a complete slave by then having a cashless system. So it's really dangerous what's happening in India, and this is going everywhere. Everybody is trying to implement this. This is Kenneth Rogoff and all the elitists around the world in the UN that are pushing this out into the nation states for them to implement in their local systems. So it's not that it would just happen there. It's going to happen everywhere if we let them to it. They are not going to stop this and just say, oh, it's not going to happen to me. It will happen to you if you don't stand up and start fighting back.
Yeah, and as WikiLeaks shared on their Twitter page, the CIA access to Aadhaar issue raised in Rajya Sabha. As the article kind of goes into, the controversial issue of how Aadhaar is a threat to national security and how American Central Intelligence Agency has direct access to it via UIDAI certified foreign spy companies, as reported by Great Game India, how CIA spies access India's biometric Aadhaar database, has been raised today in Rajya Sabha by Sukhendu Sekhar Roy. And there's a video on it, and it kind of just goes into, this whole thing is just creating a global database for people. You can track every move, and on top of that, I mean, it's crazy that there's some guy who went on the WhatsApp app and paid 6,000 rupees, approximately $95 to have all this information and be able to sell it out again for only $10. Really not that smart. Doesn't have a mind for the market, but he was able to access this so simply, and anyone can. I'm sure anyone can go on tour, and this is a thing. These systems are great, like the decentralized, private systems where people can do transactions without government stealing from them. But of course, when you have an incredibly transparent but corrupted system like this, then you have that up on the market. People can use these decentralized encrypted markets in order to buy this information. And then on top of that, of course, we have to look at the difference between this and cryptocurrencies. So fiat centrally planned cashless is legal tender based in debt, centrally planned, quantitative easing amok, and just constant push by central bankers to enslave people in debt. Cryptocurrencies are far different. They're decentralized, free market, competing currency, cryptographic currency, which is based in scarcity, demand, application, future potential use. So there is a lot of ways, like not so much with Bitcoin anymore per se when it comes to being able to be doing transactions anonymously, but one of the ways to get around Big Brother was through these systems. I guess you could say it's like giving a piece of gold from one person to another without government spying on you, with things like Monero and anonymous transparent systems that are self-governed by the individual, but also transparent so you can see the transactions, like EOS. They're anonymous, but they are transparent. So there's a lot of ways to get around the system within a cashless system as long as it's decentralized and the blockchain is built on newer infrastructure that actually abides by the massive infringements of security and privacy that we've seen in recent days by government and banking systems. But what we're seeing in India is this push, this test ground for a global centrally planned cashless system through the IMF's SDR, special drawing rights, with a whole bunch of localized currencies all going into this massive complex where everyone is spied on, everyone is taxed to death. They can raise taxes, no one can escape it, just like we talked about with the whole Panama Papers situation. Pushed by the Open Society Foundation, where George Soros was trying to get a monopoly on the internet. And then we also find out that the United Nations, which we predicted before it happened, would try and create an international taxation racket where basically they can have monitoring on every single country in the world.
The base erosion and income shifting.
This all comes together. Bail-ins as well, like we kind of went into and alluded to. At the same time, Mario Draghi at the ECB, the European Central Bank, is also trying to push forward a way so that nothing is insured, as if it's not bad enough already by the fact that our depositors' money isn't properly insured to begin with, so they could just steal our money. Then they go into a cashless system, no runs on a bank, nothing you could do. Screw you, the investor. Screw you, the depositor. Screw you, the person who worked their ass off to make money, because you know what? Government always wins and the banks always win. Well, I say screw that. The individual always wins. Freedom always wins. The free market always wins. The free market is always right. And it comes down to you as an individual standing up for what you believe against this centrally planned banking cartel that's trying to implement itself with the government, etc., hand in hand, to monitor everything you do and make sure that you don't have too much to think and you don't, spend your hard-earned money on things that you want without being stolen from by the government.
Yeah, well, this is all about a feudalist control grid system that they want. They just want, like, government has to replace the old kings and queens. And then now you're just paying tax to the government, which has a whole bunch of, the lords, the people that are politicians now that are to, replace the lords and the barons and so on. So this is a new system that has been around, forever. It's just that we wanted to give more people the control than, what the kings and queens. So it's all about control and greed. That's and control and greed gets more greed and more control. So you just gonna end up with this global UN system, which you really want. That's where all this is going. If you keep on letting this government, just grow and grow and grow, and it does until it collapses in on itself.
Well, it's out of desperation too, because as we've gone into before. The central banking system is in desperation mode due to, really low interest rates. They're worried because they have to, I think between 2008 and 2012, they lowered it 5.5% in order to manipulate back into prosperity for a few years within the fiat monetary system.
Yeah, the average is 5%, right?
Yeah, exactly. And they will have to drop it.
They're way behind.
Yeah, they have to drop it so much more in the coming crash, and they can't do it without going into negative interest rates like we saw in Sweden, which, surprise, surprise, has the biggest cashless system in the world. Yeah. And it's exactly where they want us because they want to be able to continue to create debt slaves and take complete control over the monetary system. Remember that The Economist magazine from years back with the Phoenix flying with the SDR in its for the year 2018. I mean, this is the kind of precipice it's coming to, but there's a good chance that they won't survive. They will not prevail, and I think that there's a good sign of that with people flocking out of the monetary system, flocking out of the bond markets, this bubbling stock market, all this kind of stuff. People are flocking towards Bitcoin, other cryptocurrencies, and then at the same time, decentralized blockchain technologies like Steemit.com, etc., out of the mainstream social dinosaur medias. And then at the same time as that, like into gold and silver, and we're seeing the recent 5 or 7 year bear trend break in recent days, and we're going to watch a massive rally, 5-year bear trend. We're going to see a massive rally in gold and silver soon. This is not financial advice. This is our opinion. We need a Keynesian kind of crazy degree in order to legally say this is what you should do at this time and blah, 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 blah. So do your own due diligence, but this is as clear as day.
Actually, you just need to be a salesperson. That's how terrible it is. But it's approved by the banksters, of course. It's just ridiculous. I think we need to see an end on this right away, or else we're gonna, end up in this total slavery system.
We're heading for a calamity.
Yeah, but with more and more people getting involved in Bitcoin as an investment, they start to read up on it, and then they start getting educated on what we've been talking about, freedom and libertarianism, voluntarism, and so on. And suddenly, you know what? People that I've talked to down the line, like for years ago, now they're talking like us. They're talking and wanting that freedom back in their lives because they are starting to see, initially it was just for the money, but then they start, doing a little bit of research on things, and then they find out, oh, this is the reason why this is. And then they get excited because they hear that you won't get taxed to death and raped to death, which modern countries today are taxing so heavily, the socialist countries. Meanwhile, they have the most heavily indebted populations in the world.
Yeah. So. And freedom is intrinsically popular. I mean, let's face it, we kind of get indoctrinated and conditioned out of the idea of freedom through public school indoctrination camps. But for the most part, and the mainstream media, of course, and government talking points, blah, 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 we're getting overwhelmed with it. But the idea of freedom is intrinsically popular within. And with that said, like going into all those cryptocurrencies and everything, gold and silver, all of that, when we leave a centralized system, let's not go into another centralized system. Yeah. So fiat is crazy. It's terrible. All fiat currencies eventually revert to their intrinsic value of zero. Always have, always will. Going back to 1024 AD in China. And then the fundamentals are off the table due to the level of manipulation in the monetary system as well as the markets. And that means that you can't put a date on when the crash is going to happen, but you know it's going to happen. So that's why you over-prepare and create your own solutions, which means if you're going to go into cryptocurrencies, don't go into Ripple, because Ripple is centralized. It's a centrally planned system.
Ben Bernanke was there when they got initialized.
Yeah, and
always one of the people love them all.
It defeats the whole purpose of the cryptocurrency market when the whole idea is to decentralize and get away from the centralized grid, only to go to another centrally planned system. It's ridiculous. The market's always right, so if people want it, go for it. But I'm telling you that it's just so ridiculous, hypocritical, and dumb. So, I mean, there's so many decentralized ways to be prosperous, and there are so many ways with like gold and silver, palladium, etc., to get off that grid. When the banking system goes down, the manipulation will end, and we will prosper if we prepare ourselves and know ahead of time what's going on. We need to know the negative information in order to make it positive.
Yeah. No, just to sum everything up here, it's all about the war between decentralization and centralization. So more centralization, get more centralization, and so on. And decentralization, on the other hand, it makes more decentralized, more secure. And that's what we see with this Aadhaar system, so centralized. It's terrible, Josh.
Yeah, retina scans. We're seeing similar things in Australia, China, etc., Sweden, Canada. The M0 in the United States is very odd. I mean, it's all just coming to a precipice, and it's boiling, and it's about to boil over, and that's why it comes down to us making our own good, educated choices and preparing for the future, because there's nothing more important to do for yourself and your family than to prepare for what's to come and understand the system that we are being enslaved by. So
100%.
Thanks for going into this with us, John, and we'll be back at you with much more. This is Josh Sigurdson and John Sneisen signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth.
Be the change.
Like what you see here at WHAM? Don't forget to check the links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. We can't do it without you. Any donation is very much appreciated, especially as we are so overwhelmingly demonetized and censored by YouTube as the Anti-Defamation League comes in and flags all of our content as hate speech. You can also find me at Josh Sigurdson at steemit.com. That's steemit.com, the future of social media, where you get paid in the upvote of your post via Steem, the cryptocurrency. You can also find our Bitcoin address in the description and the comments below, as well as on the screen for you to scan if you please. And don't forget to come on down to Anarchapulco in Acapulco, Mexico in February, one of the best events of the year, and you can save money on your tickets by typing in promo code WHAM. That's WAM. We'll leave the link below for you, and until next time, don't forget to subscribe. This is Josh Sigurdson signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.